This is Saurabh, and you're listening to my favorite talk show, The Weekly Show with Aditya.
रिश्ते में तो हम तुम्हारे बाप होते हैं नाम
Retirement is a very touchy subject when it comes to the matter of sports. On one hand, while we revere a sports person for a certain duration of time, at the end we have to believe that this person has to go so as to make way for other younger generation players. An individual who himself or herself started at the age of 18 or 19, and when they reach a certain age, we all know what that age is, because age is a tricky number when it comes to sports. What is the age to retire? Is injury going to play a role? Are external factors going to force you to take a decision which you would have taken eventually, but you had to expedite this decision because of the conditions surrounding the particular decision? The same thing is about a certain sports person's retirement who retired very smartly on the 15th of August, thus putting all the limelight on this person. But the decision wasn't unexpected. Yes, it came in a manner which was cryptic. It wasn't given too much of a publicity, but everybody knew in that particular sport that this individual was eventually going to retire, or rather, this individual had to retire because this individual's last 400 days of hanging around, of not officially calling it off, of not sending an email or a letter to their employers or their respective sports bodies, because until this did not happen on that particular day, this individual was seen as hanging around, prolonging it, becoming a headache for others, because till the time this particular sports player called it off, the discourse was, why isn't he calling it off? The World Cup of 2019 was officially, unofficially, and obviously his last match he played. But for 400 days, according to a few pseudo experts, he hadn't officially called it. Everybody was waiting anxiously as to when he will call it off. And the irony is that till the day this particular sports person didn't call it off, everybody was questioning his attitude, saying that he was no longer needed in the team, saying that a few younger players had taken over and it was time that he had less of an influence on the team. But look at the chameleon change in these pseudo experts. The moment he officially sent a letter to his employers, that is the sports body, the moment he announced on the pseudo media to his fanatics that I am calling it off or consider me retired, the chameleon change was there for all to see. Suddenly, this sports person is a legend, and suddenly there are statistics abound. The discussion around him is the influence he had on the team, and this is what is so ironical about a sports person's retirement. Let me read you lines from a newspaper and then we shall discuss how ironical this entire story is. While an entire nation was beginning to settle down into the twilight after the Independence Day celebrations on Saturday, MS Dhoni, the Captain Cool, another ironical word, did what he usually does, have the last word, and with panache. While in other professions, the ages between 30 to 40 is usually the age when an individual gets into the groove of their profession, gets mature, understands the profession, starts building up the confidence in that profession. In sports, you reach your mid 30s and you're expected to go. While in other professions between 30 and 40, as I said, you are beginning your career literally. In sports, the ages between 35 and 40 is literally the age of senior citizens. When you reach 40, you are a senior citizen when it comes to sports, and that is professional sports. And for now, I'm not even calling out the entertainment sports section of WWE because that is a whole different ball game altogether. But such is the nature of a sport. Yes, this individual retired, he called it a day. We all know why. I won't go into details, but let's look at from a different angle. What if it was another sports person who wanted to call it a day? What if it was from the sport of wrestling, football, hockey, tennis, athletics, and let's for now look at from the point of view of an Indian professional sports person? What if it was not a cricketer? What if it was Vishwanathan Anand from the sport of chess? Would have we given the same amount of space on the print, electronic, and pseudo media? Would have we talked about it in the same manner? I have my doubts. Such is the influence of one game. Indian football literally coming to a halt and all its qualifying matches not happening for another couple of months. Let's say the football qualifying matches for the Asia Cup and the World Cup will happen next year or will resume next year. And in that duration, the current Indian captain, do we know who it is? Well, I will let you guess who that is. Answer me through the email. So the current Indian football captain calls it a day. He waits, but then he realizes that by the time the qualifying matches for the World Cup and the Asia Cup resumed, he would have reached an age where he would not be seen as fit enough to play. Well, the player knows he's fit, his teammates know he's fit, but the selectors don't know, or the selectors don't think he's adding value. What if this particular individual had called it off? The strange relation we have with football that for us, European football and South American football are at a pedestal, while for India we don't look beyond Mohan Bagan and East Bengal as domestic teams. We don't respect the current footballers. We respect them, but there is a difference between respect and how we look at them in the manner of fanaticism. It wasn't just about Dhoni retiring, it was also about another teammate who was competent, who had, one could say, years behind him, but the attitude of the teammates, the selectors, forced him to retire and rely on playing only the domestic games. That is the Indian No Paisa League or the Indian T20 Domestic World Cup. Well, if you want to know more about my analysis of this entire situation, read my article, The Domestic World Cups Will Be Dhoni's Epilogue. It's on my website, and I urge you to read it to understand the analysis of this entire situation.
Magnificent strike into the crowd. India lift the World Cup after 28 years, and it is an Indian captain who's been absolutely magnificent in the night of the final. In the air, Srishant takes it. India win. Unbelievable scenes here at the Bombay.
25 years of the internet or 25 years of the headache, because if you look at it in any way, while internet has led us to do amazing things. It has opened portals to other non-existent worlds which we knew existed but we could not connect with. Now we can connect with in a matter of time. But the question is it 25 years of a headache or 25 years of freedom? Once again, we are looking at this statistically from dial up modems, which used to take eons to start, which used to falter at every step, to having broadband connections, to having speeds which are faster than the speed of light. This is how we analyze this ubiquitous medium called the internet. I keep reading articles in the manner of what ifs. What if this pandemic circus had struck us 25 years ago or 20 years ago? Would we have had the same kind of infrastructure we have now? Well, if it had struck 20 years ago, point number one is we would have never known about it because of the limited knowledge we had about things, of our limited access to information overload, and then none of these pseudo media sites existed which we revere up to such extent that we take things said on this side seriously. Once again, right now it's about the statistics. Let me tell you some statistics which the various print, electronic, and pseudo media sites have expounded. Today, internet connectivity is at least 4,000 times as fast and costs a fraction of what it did 25 years ago. It had in 1995 all of 23,500 websites compared to 1.8 billion now according to Internet Live States. Most novel use at that time was sending and receiving emails. Today, it's the backbone on which tomorrow's self driven cars, autonomous robots, and immersive virtual reality are being built. If you ask me, and it's very important that you ask me, for me, the most important use of internet will always be sending and receiving emails. Yes, self-driven cars, automation is important, but we can live without automation. Then the idea of self-driven cars in itself is nothing more than ironical. Why are we only celebrating 25 years of the internet and 25 years of the mobile phone? Will we celebrate 100 years of the radio when it comes in 2029? Or will we celebrate 100 years of the Indian Broadcasting Company, also known as All India Radio, when it was introduced in what we call the pre-independence era? Strange part is that on one hand we revere this magnificent piece of technology, this piece of technology which is abstract, which nobody can see, which connects us to unknown people in unknown lands. We come to know about other individuals, but it works both ways. On one hand, we talk about connectivity, on the other hand, we talk about privacy. How do you balance privacy and connection with others? There is only one solution. If you are on such pseudo media sites, don't argue with people. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't get into a discussion. There is a subtle difference between getting into a discussion and getting into an argument. Every day, take a couple of hours break, and you don't have to announce to the entire world that I am going off my pseudo media sites. Do it quietly. You don't have to log out, you don't have to close your account, just take a break. Yes, internet speeds have increased, but on the other hand, we are equally lazy. If it takes even a minute for the website to load, for example, we start panicking. The most hilarious part is that if, for example, these pseudo media websites like Facebook, Twitter, Insta, WhatsApp, they crash for even a couple of minutes. That is, if these websites for even a couple of minutes, if you are not able to access it, if there is some kind of technical error, or what we call in engineering terms back end error, we presume it's the end of the world. And then every day we hear about millions of individuals data being curated and stolen. Well, I think it's our own fault that our data is being stolen. Think that these social media sites are our CV. So if you are the member of an organization, but if you don't write that on your, for example, the pseudo site Twitter, people will think that you have left the organization. Such is the psyche that has been created, and this is our own creation. For example, if I'm a member of an XYZ organization, but I don't write anything about it on these pseudo media sites, it doesn't mean that I am not a member. It just means that I don't see the point of telling everybody. Those who know about it, they know about it. Human beings were always easily malleable, right from times immemorial, right from ages. It's difficult to go back into years. Human beings have always been influenced by external factors, but they have been mature enough not to be influenced so much. But now the trick is that these pseudo media sites influence us in manners we cannot imagine. If you are not on this, you are not in tune with the modern world. For example, I attended a 3-hour webinar yesterday. Yes, a 3-hour webinar. But once the webinar finished, I switched off my internet, I switched off my electronic device, and then I just switched off the lights of my room and I dozed off for a while. If that meant missing a few messages, fine, I'll answer the messages after a while. So it's not a huge deal. We cannot cry the privacy wolf and yet see this medium as a source of greatness, as a source where we connect at 4000 Mbps, where there are more than 2 billion websites, out of which some of these websites are anyways doubling of the same thing. For me, we have to treat internet as just another piece of technology that is there, just as we have treated the likes of telegram, fax, newspapers, TV and radio. And how do we treat the likes of fax, telegram, TV, and radio? We have put them in the archives, or tried to put them in the archives. For me, internet is something that will come and go. The higher the speed of a website is not directly proportional to progress. Because if the website doesn't open in the milliseconds we want it to open, or it is programmed to open, we start panicking. Is the internet and phone, which we can club together as 25 years of revolution or 25 years of headache? I will leave it to my listeners. The Lake Isle of Innisfree by W.B. Yeats. I will rise and go now and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin built there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee loud glade. And I shall have some peace then, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway or on the pavements way. I hear it in the deep heart's core. गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल है गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल है अरे गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल है सीधे रास्ते की ये टेढ़ी ही चाल है अरे सीधे रास्ते की ये टेढ़ी ही चाल है गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल है गोलमाल गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल है भूख रोटी की हो तो पैसा कमाइए पैसा कमाने के लिए भी पैसा चाहिए पैसे ना मिले तो पसीना बहाइए बहता है जब पसीना तो रूमाल चाहिए हो गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल है गोलमाल गोलमाल है गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल है हर सीधे रास्ते की एक टेढ़ी ही चाल है सीधे रास्ते की एक टेढ़ी ही चाल है गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल 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 है भाई सब गोलमाल है माल बन गया भी कर कमीज फाड़ कर कमीज के लिए भी तो फिर कपड़ा चाहिए अरे कपड़ा किसी ने दान दिया चलो दर्जी के पास जाके वो पहले सिलाइए गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल है गोलमाल गोलमाल है गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल है ए हर सीधे रास्ते की एक टेढ़ी ही चाल है सीधे रास्ते की एक टेढ़ी ही चाल है गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल है गोलमाल 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 है भाई सब गोलमाल है सिली कमीज पे तो कुछ नहीं लिया सिली हुई कमीज पे सिलाई चाहिए सिलाई देने के लिए फिर पैसा चाहिए पैसा कमाने के लिए फिर पैसा चाहिए हो गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल है गोलमाल 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 है भाई सब गोलमाल है हर सीधे रास्ते की एक टेढ़ी ही चाल है अरे सीधे रास्ते की एक टेढ़ी ही चाल है गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल है गोलमाल गोलमाल गोल गोलमाल है भाई सब गोलमाल है is intolerable, he said as I moved courteously to make room for him and I could see the thing from his point of view. All he asked from life now that he had made his pile was to be as far as possible from Bertram Booster. And here he was, cheek by jowl, as you might say, on a rather uncomfortable chest with him. A certain peevishness was inevitable. Not too good, I agreed. Unquestionably open to criticism, the animal's behavior. He must be off his head. He knows me perfectly well. He sees me every day. Ah, I said, putting my finger on the weak spot on his argument. But I don't suppose he's ever seen you in that dressing gown. I had been too outspoken. He let me see at once that he had taken umbrage. What's wrong with my dressing gown? He demanded hotly. A bit on the bright side, don't you think? No, I do not. Well, that's how it would strike a highly strung dog. He appeared to chuckle softly and he asked what the devil I was giggling about. I put him abreast. I was merely thinking that I wish we could strike the highly strung dog. The trouble on these occasions is that one is always weaponless. It was some years ago when an angry swan chased self and friend on the roof of a boathouse building at my aunt Agatha's place in Hertfordshire. Nothing would have pleased us better than to bung a brick at the bird or slosh him with a boat hook. but we had no break and were short of boat hooks. This ends another exciting chapter in the history of the weekly show with Aditya. Episode number 248 on the 17th of August 2020. Remember, we are only 2 episodes away from a milestone 250 episode. So stay tuned.
For more awesome content, tune in to the next episode of the weekly show with Aditya.